Ryan in Pennsylvania wants to ask a question. Is this show or your other content more successful in conversions? What are the content, Ryan? And who are you talking to? Both of us? Each of us?
Howdy, guys. I'm a huge fan of both of your work, whether it be the long form video essays, kind of breaking down specific topics, or Matt. I've seen a couple of your debates, and then of course this show, and I think all of these things are kind of appealing to possibly different audiences, definitely seeking somewhat different responses. And yeah, I mean, really, just what I said. Do you think that this show uh, is more successful in changing people's minds? Have you had more people approach you and say that, oh, this is kind of what clicked for me, or debates, or breaking down things, responses? Yeah, I was just curious and kind of how do you approach that if you're approached on the street by a person face to face? What approach are you most typically taking?
Okay. I'm trying to think of how brutal I want to be right now. See, because I had, okay, here we go. I don't know which of the areas of my work have been more effective. I don't know if the
Hmm.
debates have been more effective at convincing people than the call-in shows. I don't know if the call-in shows are more effective than what I'm doing on my personal channel. I've received messages from people because of all of them, and I had potentially, I know it was over 1,000, but it may have been a couple of thousand people who emailed over the years to say, "Hey, I found myself out because of what you and your coworkers have done here and here and here and here." Um, Unfortunately, some lying fuckheads on the board of directors for an organization decided in retaliation that they would lock me out of my emails. So the 18 years of emails I have that could provide the data that lets me know roughly how effective something is no longer available to me. So, for
Jesus
those
Christ.
folks, all my best. I miss you dearly. He said while holding up fingers for the people who couldn't see it. But here's the thing. I think it takes all of those, and I think that it is often best when there's a mix. I often looked for like the best way or the silver bullet or what convinced people to get out. And when somebody emails me, I ask them, and I've asked many times. This is another reason why I'm mad I don't have access to these conversations anymore. But I asked many times, "Hey, what was it? Was there a tipping point for you? Was there a thing that somebody said?" And the majority of the responses, one or two of them might have had a yes, you said this, and it was like, but most of them are no, it was a cumulative thing where bits and pieces got whittled down and it took, you had to chip away at this, you had to chip away at this, you had to chip away at this. And it's it appears that that people find their way out for different reasons. And some of them are going to stumble across one of Paul's videos, and something, they're going to watch it and it's not going to impact them at all. And somebody else is going to watch one of Paul's videos and they're going to watch it and be like, wow, I've never heard anybody talk like this. And that becomes this process of somebody plants a seed and later on something happens. Because the first time you hear something that is foreign, it's just weird and you dismiss it. And then the second time you hear it, it's, ooh, I heard something like that before. And the third time is when you get to it being a pattern. And when you're a fundamentalist Christian in particular, or a religious person of that similar ilk, it seems that you need a pattern to let you normalize, whoa, there are non-believers and they understand and have read my holy book and they've thought about these things from a philosophical point, and God hasn't taken them out. And it's a little piece by piece. And then the sort of, to steal an apologist term, the sort of cumulative case against God, or the cumulative case showing that their arguments for God have failed. Um, that seems to be the majority from my recollection, but I can no longer go back and assess that content. because, you know, some people are awful.
I borrow another thought from my evangelical days, and Matt started with it, and that is just the notion of planting seeds, gardening, and the whole notion of the harvest, right? And when I was an evangelical, you were definitely trained in Bible school not to focus on the person who did the conversion at the end, because that's just the harvest. And if there wasn't all that work prior, the person who showed up at the end and gets the conversion, or in our case, the deconversion, it'd be weird for Matt or I to take credit for deconversions, even when people come up and say, you know, it's because of you, because I know full well that yeah, this was this was part of some process, almost always, right? So, I mean, I think Matt and I would both probably agree that the majority of our feedback is going to come from our personal channels versus call-in shows or whatever. Like we're just not getting that feedback as directly, so we're probably going to have a bit of a skewed, you know, by reporting bias when it comes to that. But I the reason I do like these kind of doing these kind of shows is exactly what Matt said. Is I feel like when I was deconverting, I needed all of these aspects, and a hard hitting video on why young Earth creationism is stupid is maybe one person needs. And so I'm kind of rambling and repeating all that to say, I try not to focus on how many people came across the finish line, and focus on rather did the person who came into my video move one step closer when they watched it. And if some people, if that's their last step, cool, but I don't try and worry about it too much.
And the last little note, just because it comes up over and over again. Um, I also don't keep a tally. I just happen to know that there were a bunch of them. It was impressive, you know, doing atheist experience for years and getting emails on a regular basis, including from people who are like, I watched you for 2 years and called in 5 times and you were an asshole. And I set out to prove you wrong and that backfired. And now I'm an atheist. That's happened. But my favorite one of all time, um, at a debate that I did with Abdu Murray in Lubbock or
Mm.
near there.
Mhm.
There was a young girl that came up after the debate was over and she's like, hey, my parents are non-believers, but they've raised me to question everything and allowed me to explore. And I've gone to churches and all those other things. And I came to this debate tonight. And after tonight, I'm an atheist. And I think she was like 11 or 12. Um,
Oh.
and I've said for years that I would have taken the absolute worst calls available twice a week, every week for the next 20 years, just to get one more 11-year-old girl. It would be worth it. Fortunately,
Yeah.
there have been many, and it's not me. Anytime somebody comes up to me at an event, they're like, oh my gosh, you're the reason I'm an atheist. I'm like, whoa. First of all, you don't get to blame that shit on me. But second of all, no, you did it. There were 25,000 other people that heard me say exactly what you heard me say, and they didn't change their mind. You did. So take credit for being open-minded and thinking and you know, being willing to follow the evidence where it goes instead of leading it where you want it to go. Um, and that's the best answer that the two of us can give today, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys want have time for a quick follow-up, I guess I want to focus in specifically on the style of responses. You know, you started the call off with how brutal do you want to get, and I think that that's kind of a theme that is overarching in most call-in shows, not just this
To
one in
be to be
particular.
fair, to be fair, that
Mm,
question about how brutal I want to get is whether or not I wanted to mention the jackasses that stole my emails or not.
right, right, absolutely. But you can understand what I'm referencing in terms of like obviously people are calling in and getting more aggressive themselves, but there is a more aggressive response from the host on this show more typically than say if you're debating Sam Harris or Jordan Peterson.
Well, to be fair, I don't know that you can say
Mm,
that because if you look at the public debates that I've done,
yeah,
they don't look like the show because I'm there with one
yeah,
individual and a moderator and rules. You haven't seen Sam Harris do this show.
that's true. That is true.
and you won't.
I
Not because
well,
I
I
got no problem with Sam doing it. I'm just saying I doubt Sam would.
yeah, I
Um,
guess maybe a good example is Alex O'Connor. I have seen him come on. I think it was the atheist experience.
Once.
And he's I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was on once with me.
Yes, yes, he was on once, and he tended to take a demeanor that was a little bit more not aggressive, but kind of like, maybe more focused on entertainment than necessarily focusing on purely just the argument,
Yeah.
as opposed to when he's doing debates or long form, similar to especially like Paul. I'm
I don't
thinking
know.
of your
I don't.
comment.
I don't know what the point is of this. Is there anybody that has spent any time? Is there anybody who's spent nearly as much time doing this as me? Has Alex done this as much as
No,
me? So one of the things is that if we're just going to compare styles, do I have a rougher style than some people? You bet. Um, who's reached more people, me or Alex? Don't know. I hope we both have reached billions. Um,
mm,
but and there's a chance there are discussions about Alex and I doing an event together. We haven't spoken in a number of years since his little cult of vegan followers would come and comment on every video I did about the conversation. It was obnoxious, and now he's not a vegan anymore. But I guess he's survived the retaliation of that group. There was discussion about us possibly doing something. I got no beef with Alex, never have. Just blocked on Twitter. I blocked him on Twitter and sent him a message on Facebook saying I'm done with this crap on there because I called out somebody for something and it was immediately, yeah, but you're not a vegan, including from Alex, which is weird. Um,
yeah,
I don't I don't have any interest in dueling styles. I love the fact that Paul's style is different from mine, and the two of us can both work here. If somebody's like, oh, you're doing it wrong, cool. You go do it better, come back with some data and show that there's a better way, and I'll make changes. But I think I've done it a handful of different ways over the last 20 years. But anyway, it's
yeah.
this is not
Mm.
a, you like who you like the style you like. I'm fine with all of it. I find it funny that I've never told anybody else how to do a show.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
no,
you're
absolutely.
doing it wrong. I don't think I've
Well, and
ever
I
gone to anybody and said you're doing the show wrong.
well, and I
I
think
might have.
that's I'm sorry.
I might have. I just don't recall ever doing that. And yet, um, it's on the regular that somebody tells me I'm doing it wrong.
And I think that that's fundamentally wrong. I think that yeah, saying that you're doing
They
this
could be right.
incorrectly is a misunderstanding of what I think you're trying to achieve. But I guess because even not based on an individual person, but based on how they're approaching a different setting. So like you yourself, Matt, are going to approach this call-in show very differently to, I mean, I can't speak to it, but potentially even a person that you're speaking to, just on the street or after a debate or,
Yeah.
at a meet and greet or whatever.
And I think
And
anybody who
so I guess
doesn't is probably doing it wrong, he said as a callback.
uh,
It's because, so here's the thing. Right now
yeah,
you're the last caller, Ryan. But before that, there were
yeah, and I
about
don't want to keep you guys.
no, no, well then stop interrupting me and it'll get here even quicker. Um, before we took the call, there were 5 or 6 people on hold. I'm here as the host of a show.
Mm,
If I just wanted to have a conversation with somebody on a phone about why they believe in God, I could do that. And I have done that. Um, we could sit down, we could do a Skype call, we could do a Zoom call, whatever, and not even record it, just have the conversation. But
mm,
this is a show. And so there are extra duties of the host, which are constantly keeping in mind there's thousands of people watching live. There are tens to hundreds of thousands of people going to be watching all or part of this over the next couple of months or years. And there's one person that's on the current active line, but there's 5 people on hold. Is the conversation I'm having with this person serving the current live audience, the future live audience, and is it taking up space that somebody on hold would be much better at? And am I giving enough time to the caller? Am I giving enough time to the co-host? Are we staying on topic? Are we rabbit trailing off into our side worlds? Are we spending time talking about tone patrolling and whose style is good? And if so, how fucking quickly can I hang up? That is all stuff that any of the hosts need to have in their mind. But the primary thing is this conversation going to benefit someone? Are we actively working to get to the truth, to either expose a flaw in one another's thinking or to present evidence for what each of us is claiming? That has to be the front. So if everybody finds the show boring, but it has amazingly good content that would actually help people, I don't care. You guys can whine all you want in chat, and the mods can mute you. If the show is incredibly entertaining and everybody's laughing, but all they're doing is going, man, those creationists, they're so stupid. They called in and they did this. They're like flat earthers. I posted a video on Instagram a couple of days ago. It's got like 70,000 views on Instagram and over 100,000 views on Facebook. And it's only a few seconds long. And it's just a dumb little funny thing because I saw a flat earther use a temp gun, like I've got for checking the temperature in reptile enclosures, aimed a temp gun at the sun to measure the temperature of the sun in order to make a case about the flat earth. And I was like, that's so stupid. I want to do it just for lols. Because despite what some people think, I'm a funny motherfucker. And sometimes I like to have a good time. So we went out in the backyard and I pointed that thing up at the sky and got it up to where it's 544 degrees and pulled it down and showed off to the camera and, you know, made a quick joke at Flat Earth's expense. That video has got 100,000 views in one place and 70,000 views in another place. I put up a video on my own channel that's 20 minutes on this particular topic. It might get 30,000 views in that time frame. Why is a joke about taking the temperature of the sun? I get it. It's shorter. If my other content was shorter, it would probably get 100,000 views too. But it's just because I don't get upset about it. I'm not like, why is the important stuff not being viewed at the same rate that the stupid stuff is? And I don't get upset about it because I already know the answer. We need the stupid stuff because the important stuff would grind us down into oblivion. Just the sheer weight of the seriousness of everything that's going on. If you can't take a minute to laugh, yes, even if you're laughing at flat earthers, you're doomed. And so, yeah, I had fun with it. Anyway, that was a way for me to distract from this thing about tone and style to say, Ryan, is there any final point you'd like to make before we hang up on your ass?
No, this was a very enlightening conversation. I appreciate you guys' time.
Cool. Thanks so much, man.
Right,
and I appreciate your understanding too. It was a good way to end the calls for the show tonight. And on that note,
I'm gonna tag one thing on there, Matt, and that is that when I was deconverting, I absolutely needed Bible scholars. I needed Peter Enns, I needed Bart Ehrman, I needed that stuff. But if it were not for Ricky Gervais and George Carlin, I'm not sure that I would have come out. I needed both things. I needed to see what I believed being mocked in one corner, and then I needed the rational version. It's just like the other thing we said. All tones must be represented, or we're not going to hit everybody. Because even for myself, there was no single tone that was going to do it. So that's all I had.
Yeah, it's my way out was a little different because it was pre-YouTube, and there were a number of people I listened to. Infidels.org. If you guys aren't already familiar with that website, it's important, and I owe all of the individuals that are over there. Eddie's over there, Rick's over there. There's a classical library and a modern library. There's tons of writings from legitimate scholars challenging, the evidence that demands a verdict crew and all of this, in some cases going through it chapter by chapter and claim by claim and writing up lists of things. Now, I'll caution you, as I always do, whether it's at infidels.org or other places, if you just looked up like Bible contradictions, you'll find all kinds of charts. There's a famous one that's just red lines showing everywhere in the Bible, everything. Not all of those are contradictions. Not all of those are even remotely problematic. Some of those are from incredibly confused people who didn't bother to do their homework. And so be very careful if you're going to bring those up. But there are good contradictions and passages that are problematic all throughout. Even something I love, I don't have it right here, Skeptic's Annotated Bible. I have my printed version. The website version is up. If you go through there verse by verse, they list contradictions and problems and stuff. Here's 500 problems in Scripture. Some of those are legit issues. Some are not. They're a good starting point for people to get a feel for how potentially broken some things about the Bible and religion are, but they are not the stopping point. Take those lists and use them to start an investigation. Go out and have fun. Go to carm.org, run by Matt Slick. I'm not, Matt's going to freak out that I'm recommending this at all, but go to carm.org or someplace like that and see if they have posted an answer to your question, to the potential contradiction. Then take their answer and go find another apologist and find out what their answer is. And then find a third and compare all of them. And then, in the same way that when people call in, you should ask yourself why they don't answer certain questions on the show, ask yourself why 3 apologists, all supposedly in personal relationships with the risen Christ, who is God and emperor and ruler of the world, who knows everything, came up with 3 fucking different answers to why this scripture doesn't make any sense. One of my favorite debates of all time, I've mentioned it before, it's been a while and I've forgotten. It was Matt Slick against Jesse, I've forgotten the last name. They're both Christians. They have 2 completely different soteriologies. The soteriology is the study of what one must do to be saved. They're debating which Christian doctrine is most accurate. And this debate is online. You can look for it. Watch what they do. Each one of them gives verses that support their position. They don't really spend any time pointing at the other guy's verses and saying, ooh, you got this wrong. Ooh, you got this wrong. Ooh, you got this wrong. And here's why. No. It's, here's the verses that support my position. Here's the verses that support my position. Whatever shall we do? I guess we'll each proclaim we're right. It is watching, it may have been Jesse Morrell. You'd have to find out, dig around a little bit, but it's genuinely, it's one of my top 5 favorite debates. Sean Carroll and William N. Craig, where he pulls up the video or the picture of, I think it was Guth that he pulled up for the Board Guth Lincoln model. Anyway, that's in my top 2 as well. Yeah. Somebody seems to have verified. Jesse Morrell, JESSEMORELL. Watch it. You can learn stuff. You can go out. You think Paul and I got to a point where we're able to take on calls and speak on 20 different topics at something beyond a surface level and have an understanding of what Christian apologists or Jewish apologists, although they're rarer, would have to say, without actually talking to them and reading what they wrote and engaging with them and finding their disagreement. When I say there were 4 apologists standing around me, all giving 4 different excuses for slavery at a debate, I'm not even joking. They were all standing in a semicircle around me, trying to challenge my take on slavery, and each one of them had a different explanation for slavery. And I said, you guys sort out which one of you is right, and whichever one of you is right, I'll debate that one. Give me a call when you agree. I'm never going to hear from any of them. It's embarrassing bad.